Well, Man Z here with some awesome comic books, and these are awesome, in fact. This is the Uncanny X-Men from the era where the international team, the team you're familiar with mainly from the movies, was just a couple years introduced. This is around 1979-ish. This is around the time I got started in comics. I actually did not get the first couple issues I'm going to show here until I ordered them about a year after I read the first issue, which was issue, I believe, 131. I ordered these guys from Mile High Comics. They were around back in the day. But check out this cover. We've got the beautiful woman here, Storm. We've got the metallic being, that's Colossus. And down here is Wolverine, who you all know that from the movies. Notice how short he is. He's a short guy. Hugh Jackman, he's 6'2", 6'3", well-built man. Wolverine was well-built, but he was a short guy. It was implied he was about 5'2" to 5'4", depending on the writer. He was always the shortest guy in the team. Nightcrawler was often shown. Nightcrawler is the demonic looking fellow and the little heads down there, the blue fellow. Nightcrawler would sometimes be about the same height as him, but Nightcrawler was hunched. Wolverine was just short. Implied to be very heavy. His bones are adamantium, so sometimes somebody would try to pick him up and go, wow, this guy's heavy. That's because his bones are solid metal and a very dense metal. This is the beginning of a storyline that I would call the Dark Phoenix Saga mixed in with the Hellfire Club storyline. Hellfire Club was sort of a group of rich elite people. They all had various level powers, either mutant or one was a cyborg, for example, so they weren't all mutants. They wanted to control the world. They were some sort of cabal type of thing. They never really went into great details, but one of the things that they were trying to do in this storyline was they had a member who was sort of could project images or illusions. His name that he was presented at initially was Jason Weingard, and he's trying to get the Phoenix, who's Jean Grey's character. He's trying to shape her mind such that he can control her through dreams and images that he's conjuring into her mind. At this point in the comic, there's a recent advent in the last year or so of this comic where Jean Grey, who went from a very weak and effectual character, although popular, she was Marvel Girl initially. She went through a metamorphosis, and I won't go into details of that in this run, but she becomes uber powerful. She becomes a cosmic entity called the Phoenix, basically. It's sort of like the Phoenix forces inhabiting her body. She's up there with power levels like Thor level, Silver Surfer level, maybe even more. We don't even know the extent of her powers at this point. But what happens is in this issue, where we pick up, and I'm going to talk about as many as I can get through here and do a little run of these. This is done by Chris Claremont and John Byrne. These are Chris Claremont's a really good writer. I really like his style. He uses a lot of thought bubbles. Some people say he's very text dense. I enjoy that. John Byrne was co-plotter and artist. And then, they had the rest of the crew that was, I think Linda Swain was doing colors. And I don't know the rest of the crew who did lettering and so forth. But it was beautifully done, as you can even tell by the cover. The beings they're fighting are sort of heavy hitters from the Hellfire Club. They're some sort of cybernetically or mechanically enhanced soldiers type of thing that they have hired. Cronies. Like a lot of like James Bond villains, the Hellfire Clubs tends to use the cronies first, and then they'll break out their powers as the last resort. But in this issue, Xavier, the professor, is located a mutant in the Chicago area. It ends up being Kitty Pryde from the movies, who is Shadowcat or Ariel. She goes by a lot of different names. And the Hellfire Club's making their own move for the girl, and they send out a little crack team to engage the X-Men, and it's a pretty close fight, but the X-Men lose. They beat the Hellfire Club minions here, but then somebody else comes in, and I'll introduce her in a few minutes, who is able to zap them all by herself. So, great issue. Although I didn't start with that, I started a couple issues later. I think I talked about this when I talked about the Marvel facsimiles. This is X-Men number 130. That's the Disco Dazzler on the cover. She was another character who's just introduced. In the comic book world, Professor Xavier located her on Cerebro. That's his computer that somehow, this is back before supercomputers, it was like a supercomputer that somehow could enhance his psionic abilities to psychic abilities to locate mutants. Sort of an augmentation he put over his head. And he found her as well as Kitty Pryde. He located her in New York City. He just knows there's a mutant there. He doesn't know who it is or what they can do. He sends half of the team, which is Nightcrawler, Jean Grey as Phoenix, and Scott Summers, to a discotheque, and this is in the disco era. In there's really cool images of disco and all the denizens that you would of a discotheque that you can imagine in the 70s, and it's kind of in the seedier part of maybe Hell's Kitchen or Harlem or somewhere like that. Harlem used to be bad back in the day. They go in there, it's really run down, and they see this woman performing on stage, and they could tell instantly that like she can manipulate light and like really powerfully, and kind of has a psychological effect or a mesmerizing effect on people and so forth. They're like, wow, that's the mutant. Right at the same time, similar minions to the Hellfire Club that we saw earlier attacked the whole team. I believe they attacked Nightcrawler first, and they're taken out in part by the Dazzler, and mainly by the Dazzler and Jean Grey. They're really, really powerful. The girls tend to be powerful on this team. Storm is also very powerful. So this was a great issue. So half of the team got captured. Colossus, Wolverine, Storm, and the Professor got captured in Chicago, but this half of the team of Nightcrawler, Jean, and what's his name, Cyclops, they were not captured. So this is where I pick up X-Men in my collecting. I'm about, I guess about 11 or 12 years old at this time period. And I used to, in the old days, didn't have a lot of money. Maybe $1 a month could go to comics. And, we're talking back in the day now. Kids didn't get $100 a week allowances. None of the kids I knew, they got a couple dollars a week at the most. We were poor, so I was lucky to get $1, $2 a week. And most of it, I tried to get, a few comics every couple weeks. I always got the Avengers. I almost always got the FF. I liked the teams because it was more bang for the buck, if you will. If I had any extra money, I always tried to get another team. I would go for Micronauts. Those were great books. Defenders, which were really cool at the time. They were another team, although they said they were a non-team. But I had like the Hulk, Submariner, Black Hawk, a whole bunch of other characters that were on there were really cool. Hellcat, the Valkyrie. There was another big heavy-hitting team like the Avengers. I saw this cover. I saw this beautiful, albeit looming and sort of evil-looking woman. I was like, who the hell's that? And I saw these little freakish heads, the blue guy, and this beautiful woman. She's black, but she has white hair and clear white eyes. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And the Metal Man, I'm like, who the hell's that? And then I was familiar with Cyclops because I'd seen some old issues back when I was a couple years younger. But, then there all these, this guy really freaked me out. The guy climbing up the wall with the 3 fingers, who now I know is Nightcrawler. But you remember, back in the day we didn't have internet and fanzines and all these, things that people have, the Comic Cons. And, back then you didn't even have comic book shops. I mean, you went to a Genovese or a gas station, you got some comic books off a shelf. I mean, you didn't go to your local comic book shop. This was before all that. Comic book shops didn't start in my area till the late 80s, early 90s. They didn't exist at this time, at least to my knowledge. And so this issue was a banger to start out with. This, the X-Men that are free, Psych, Jean, Nightcrawler with Kitty Pryde, they bust in to break out the rest of the X-Men. There's a pitched battle between the various guards and soldiers of the Hellfire Club. The X-Men make mincemeat of them, if you will. I'm like, I've seen all their powers for the first time. They were blowing me away. And at the end of it, there's a clutch battle between the White Queen. That's Emma Frost's character, and she was, if you know her in the movies these days, in the shows, she's often portrayed as a good guy. But back then, she was definitively bad. She was the White Queen of the Hellfire Club. She was, I don't want to say she was part of the Inner Circle. It's kind of like the guys were the Inner Circle, and then they had like some powerful women associated with them. They always treated them kind of like, it was very sexist. It was like they were kind of there, they were attractive. Even if they were really powerful women, they never really felt like the inner part of the circle. They were always dressed in like seductive outfits, and it was kind of, it was weird. They had more physical power, but I don't think they had as much say on the decision making. It's back in the day, right? But that was a great issue to start with. This issue here, I was like taken aback. This is issue 132. The X-Men infiltrate the Hellfire Club. They find out from the high-flying angel, Warren Worthington. He's an old team member. They go visit him because, like, they're on the run now. They're like, we got this bunch of people after us. They look like they're really powerful. So they went to visit the high-flying angel. I think in New Mexico. He's a billionaire. He has places all over the place. He has like a desert, like house. It's like in the middle of nowhere in the Rocky Mountains, and they all go out there and visit him. And you can see kind of him and Jean kind of have a thing, like she kind of likes him still because he's a really handsome guy and he's rich and he's cool. Unlike Slim Summers, he's always kind of a jerk, right? So Angel's kind of a groovy guy. I would have went for the Angel if I was a girl, but at any rate, Angel's like the Hellfire Club. He's like, I'm a member of that club. They're just rich people. It's like a social. It's like the Playboy Club type thing. And they're like, no. They're like, so he gets them a pass to get in there. They can't bring Nightcrawler in or whatever because the way he looks. But the more normal looking ones go in. I know Storm goes in. I believe. Colossus and Jean goes in, and maybe that's who goes in. Jean goes in with Cyclops, like a couple. He just wears the glasses, and then I believe like Aurora Monroe goes in. She's beautiful black woman with Colossus. He can become human. He can become flesh and blood. He's just a really bulked up guy, big, tall, good looking Russian guy. Of course, the Hellfire Club recognizes him, and hell breaks out in there, and they get tromped. Pretty much the whole team gets beaten. Nightcrawler and Wolverine, I think, were backup. They were like, because they didn't really look too normal. They were kind of in the sewers or something. And what happened is they all get tromped except for Wolverine. Wolverine faces off against this guy over here in the back, heavyset guy, got a little gray beard. That's Harry Leland. He's a mutant. I believe he's a mutant who can control density. So he fights Wolverine. Fights him to a standstill. He actually increases his mass such that he puts him through the floors. He was like shocked. Wolverine ends up in the sewers and does an "I'll be back" type of thing when he's down there. It's a great panel. I'm not going to open this up right now, but you can Google it. Over here is Pierce. Pierce is a cyborg, so they're not purely all mutants. Shaw is an energy channeler, and here's Jason Weingard. I'm running out of time. I'll pick this up next time if people are interested in these old comics. I have a whole bunch of them, thousands of old comics from this time period, and I love talking about them. So I'll pick it up in a day or two. We'll talk about more comics. Wildman Z out.